Welcome back into the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap, presented by Full Press Coverage. Hope everybody is doing well. Sap, I think that you may be very conflicted right now because your guy LeBron James, maybe your favorite. I think he's your favorite player ever at this point. Would you say so?
In basketball, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So your guy LeBron James is playing fantastic. He's 38 years old. He's averaging nearly 30 points a game, 8.5 rebounds, 7 assists. He's playing terrific basketball. So you got that. But on the other hand, the Los Angeles Lakers are 4 games under 500, 20-24, and the team is not playing so well. So you've got this just marvel of a human being in LeBron that's doing unprecedented things at this age, but the team is not playing well. So my first question for you is, Sap, are you okay with LeBron just continuing to play well and the Lakers not playing well, or do you need both to be happy?
I need both to be happy. I mean, obviously, since turning 38 on December 30th, he's played 7 games. In those 7 games, he's averaging 37 points, 10 rebounds, 9 assists, shooting 55% from the floor. And that includes him shooting like 27% from 3. If he just eliminates taking threes, he's shooting close to 60% from the floor. He's playing at an incredibly high level. Now, obviously, the big question is if and when Anthony Davis comes back, and if that's the case, how long does he last? Because I think when Anthony Davis was playing earlier in the season at an MVP level to go along with LeBron James and Russell Westbrook really embracing the sixth man role, and right now is the favorite to win sixth man of the year, they could be a contender in the Western Conference because I think the East is better than the West at this point. Although I think Denver's the best team in the West. Look, LeBron and Anthony Davis playing at both MVP levels and Russell Westbrook coming off your bench, if you can maybe add a piece or two at the trade deadline, like a couple of shooters, they could make a run. So I don't think they're that far out of it. But of course, the big question mark being Anthony Davis and his health. And that's a major question mark, as it always is with Anthony Davis. But LeBron is just playing at a level that no 38-year-old's ever been at before. By the way, last year, no 37-year-old ever played at that level. That's how great he is. He's a little more than 300 points away from breaking and setting the new career record for most points by an NBA player. He's 316 points away from breaking Kareem's record. That's probably going to happen in the next 9, 10, 11 games, whatever it may be. I mean, the way he's been playing, it could happen in the next 8 games for all we know. But no, he's still playing at an incredibly high level. But sure, I still want them to contend and maybe make a little bit of a run in the postseason.
Yeah, obviously what he's doing right now is unprecedented. At 38, most guys, if they make it to their 38th season are at best, role players, more likely, at the Udonis Haslem role, which is kind of like coaches on the bench who don't really play all that much. That's sort of, if you make it that far, which few players do, you're not really contributing in a big way. Obviously, LeBron James still continues to be the best player on the Lakers and is contributing. If he's not contributing in a big way, they're not coming close to winning games. But Sap, let me throw out a couple other numbers at you right now. 40, 33, 38, 47, 35, 36. Those are the minutes played in the last 6 games for LeBron James. Is that sustainable? I know he's playing at this unbelievable level. And, he looks like a superhero still. He looks like the same as he did when he was, 28. But those minutes are really starting to creep up, and he's missed some time with injury. But again, as much as he looks like nothing bothers him at all, the minutes are getting, because Anthony Davis is out, are getting kind of crazy.
Well, they've been in so many close games, and they have to win some of these games to get into at least a play-in tournament. So you need him out there, and they just don't have much around him. Now, there was one game last week. It was him, Russell Westbrook, and a bunch of other guys that at times I forgot who they were. I mean, it really was that bad. That's how bad their roster is. So obviously they're going to have to try to improve that and then hopefully get Anthony Davis back. What they've done is, since, again, turning 38 on December 30th, he's played in only 7 of the 9 games. So they're actually giving him games off. They're not restricting his minutes when he plays. When he plays, he'll give you 36, 37, 38 minutes. He's always been that guy. It's just that now they're doing load management by giving him the entire night off. Now, that's risky because when he's not there, can they win? I think they're 1-1 in the 2 games that they sat him out. So look, if you play 500 ball when he's out, that's pretty darn good. You're holding up, your end of the bargain. The rest of the team is at least, and hopefully while he plays, you can put together, some sort of winning streak or be competitive. They started out 2-10, so they were
Yeah.
8 games under 500 to start. So since then, they're 4 games above 500, and they really started to play better with Anthony Davis. This, as much as it's on LeBron and how well he's playing, they need Anthony Davis back, because then again, you can maybe give LeBron fewer minutes on the court and given game if you're blowing a team out, although they never even hold leads. I mean, we saw that as the Celtics a month ago when they had a 13-point lead with less than 4 minutes left, and they found a way to lose that game. So you can maybe restrict those minutes, give him some nights off if Anthony Davis is back. But again, that's the biggest question in the NBA: is Anthony Davis coming back? And when he comes back, how long does he last?
Yeah, well, they can't hold leads because their defense is terrible.
Yep.
They give up a crazy amount of points, in part because LeBron, that's probably the part of the game that the age has impacted him the most on. Age or indifference is that, he can't lock down guys every possession like he used to anymore, probably because he has to do so much offensively as well. But the Lakers defense just isn't that good. My biggest thing with him, Sap, and I'm curious to see what I'm sure you'll push back on this, is that he's still obviously playing at an outstanding level. Like you can't deny the numbers. You can't deny the accomplishments. Last night, he went for 48 points, 8 rebounds, 9 assists. I know it wasn't against a very good Rockets team, but still at 38 years old, to be able to have a 48-point game is absurd. He always was able, we talked about this, I think, a couple seasons ago or over the past few years, Seth, always able to get the most out of lesser players and impact winning in that way. And now he strikes me as he's just that player that's still really good, obviously, but he doesn't impact winning the same way he used to. He's not able to make other players around him better to the degree where the Lakers are, winning on a consistent basis.
That's accurate. I mean, I think it's similar with Tom Brady. We saw this year, Brady goes 8-9, gets blown out by the Cowboys in the wild card round, and he can still throw the football. I don't think he wants to get hit anymore. I don't think LeBron wants to drive to the basket as much as he used to, because again, oftentimes they don't call fouls when LeBron goes to the basket. He's a very difficult guy to officiate. So no, I'm not going to necessarily push back on that. Also, though, you have to look at who he's playing with. I mean, how can you make certain players better if they're just not really good enough? I mean, you can make the best passes in the world, make the best decisions on offense, and you get one of your players an open jump shot and he misses the shot. You're not going to get an assist there. Obviously, assists are a dependent statistic. You need your teammates to step up as much as they can. And he doesn't have that supporting staff, supporting cast in LA. He doesn't have the shooters that you need to have on that roster. That's Rob Pelinka. He's going to have to go out, and even if he can find some shooters at the trade deadline, that could maybe help things enough to get them into the play-in tournament, maybe even better than that. So no, he can't impact winning the way he used to because the roster's not built for him. And again, on the defensive end, that is an issue. And again, when you're 38 years old and you're logging as many minutes as he has and is doing as much on offense as he has been, that's going to impact how you are on defense. So that those are all accurate. I'm not. He's still, I think, a top 7 or 8 player in the league. Is he the best player in the league anymore? Probably not. I still think Giannis is because of what he does on the defensive end. But look, to be at that age and be at that level is phenomenal. Michael Jordan, when he came back after 3 years off in 2001, was 38 years old. He was still really good, but his numbers were like 21, 6, and 5, and he was shooting 43, 44% from the floor. I mean, he wasn't as engaged as LeBron, not in the best condition either. Jordan just came back because he wanted to get into ownership. He was still really good, but not the same level of what LeBron is now, because LeBron is a much better conditioned athlete at this point than Jordan was back in 2001. Plus, the game is different. I mean, it's easier to score now than it was in 2001.
Oh, absolutely. It's way easier to score now. And I believe Jordan in that year played all 82 games too. Even though he wasn't in the best shape.
Incredible. No, he was just, you'd had to drag him off the court. Seriously. I mean, when he was committed, when he was in for the season, he was playing, 80, 81, 82 games. I think he played 81 or more games, like 10 out of 16 seasons, which is just, again, one of the many numbers you look at with Michael Jordan and go, the guy was an alien.
Yeah, without a doubt. As far as the Lakers go, Seth, before we move on from them, because I still think that they're, like you said, Seth, maybe not in a position to win a championship almost no matter what they do. I don't really see that. But again, you never know what happens with injuries and stuff like that in the playoffs. So you can't say definitively no. And they do have two top 10 players in LeBron James and Anthony Davis. I see this debate, it's on Sports Center every day. It's on and everywhere in NBA circles. Should the Lakers, mortgage their future, those two first round picks that they have to go in all in with this LeBron James and Anthony Davis thing? And from an outside perspective, I I don't see any reason why they wouldn't. To me, it doesn't make sense to just kind of go through the motions, and because the team is currently constituted, Sap, even if Anthony Davis comes back, he's 100% healthy. This team can't win a championship. Period. I don't see it in the cards. And so if you have LeBron James and Anthony Davis on your team, and the rest of your roster is holding you back so much that you could, with a strong move and bringing in another All-Star, legitimately compete for a championship, why wouldn't you?
Yeah, I mean, you want to be relevant as the Los Angeles Lakers, and those first round picks are what, 4 and 6 years in the future. And LeBron's still a top flight player, and I think he's going to play probably 2 more years. I know he wants to eventually play with Bronny. I mean, that's going to be something that's difficult to execute. Anthony Davis, you're kind of married to him with that contract. I mean, do you try to move Anthony Davis? What would you get in return because of the injury history of Anthony Davis? So you're kind of wedded to those two guys, right? I mean, LeBron wants to finish his career in LA. He's very comfortable living there. His net worth has doubled since he moved to Los Angeles. He's got a lot of business interests. And look, who doesn't want to live in Southern California? So I think you're kind of, I wouldn't say stuck with those guys because they're both top 10 players, but you're married to those guys for the foreseeable future. So why not go out and get something for them? Because once they leave, you can dip back into the free agent market, right? Because that's
Sure.
what the Lakers do. I mean, maybe Giannis is a free agent in 3 or 4 years and you sign him, or Luka's a free agent in 4 years and you sign him, or I don't want to scare you, but Jason Tatum, I think always kind of fancied himself playing for the Los Angeles Lakers.
No.
He grew up idolizing Kobe Bryant. I know I don't want to scare you this early in the year, but you get my point. There's plenty of talent out there that at some point wants to end up on the Lakers. The Lakers don't have to be a well-run organization because players want to play in LA. Like, let's say 5 years from now, John Morant decides, well, I've had enough in Memphis. This has been a really good run, but we can't quite break through. I'm going to LA, or whoever. There's a ton of stars in the league. They can reinvent themselves quickly because of free agency. They could have 2 max contracts. Remember Kyrie Irving telling Kevin Durant that at the All-Star game a few years ago, 2 max contracts. Well, they became relevant signing those two guys as free agents. So I don't understand why you're holding on to these first round picks 4 and 6 years forward when you've got two top 10 players, provided Anthony Davis is back, and you can make a run at it this year, because I don't think the West is all that deep. They could get into the top 6, don't you think? I mean, if they put together
Yeah.
some sort of winning streak, if they've added some talent, I think Denver, Memphis, New Orleans, Golden State, and Dallas, those are probably your 5 best teams in the Western Conference. I know Sacramento's had a really good year, but the Lakers can beat Sacramento, right? So you could be a top 6 team, and at that point, who the hell knows what happens in the postseason? I mean, as good as Denver is, are they some sort of lock to represent the West? I don't think so.
No, no, definitely not. I think it's, like you said, pretty wide open. And the Warriors are right now at the 7th seed, and they certainly, I think, is it to me, even though they're 500, you have to consider them one of the favorites to come out of the West. How could you not? So certainly, with the right moves, the Lakers could do it. And again, those unprotected first round picks clearly have value to other teams. I think that they're more valuable to other teams than the Lakers, like you said, because the Lakers can always recruit in free agency, even if they're, not a well-run organization. LeBron James went there, and the team was a cluster bleep for, years before he got there. So certainly, even when they're good or bad, they can recruit free agents. That's why I don't understand the logic in holding on to the picks. And for other teams, the only way they get better is via the draft. They can't get free agents. So I think that, when you have an asset that's more valuable to other teams, then you should try to capitalize on that. And I get that you don't want to give up both of them for a medium level player, but who says you have to do that? You trade one and one of the right deals, you trade another and another deal. Suddenly you have two really good players coming back, or you package them both together. Potentially you get an all-star level player. I just don't see why they're coveting these picks so much, and why somebody, whether it be Rob Pelinka or Jeannie Buss or Kurt Rambis or Linda Rambis or Phil Jackson or whoever else is in the cacophony of people who are advising the Lakers, saying
Cacophony. I
that.
like that word. That's a good
Thank
word.
you. It's a good word. Saying that, oh God, we can't part with these picks. We're going to be terrible in 4 or 5 years, and we need that pick. Like, okay, you've been terrible and you've signed free agents before. I just don't see why they feel like, okay, we're okay being a middling team, and then we'll be a bad team, and then we'll get the picks. Like right now, if they don't do anything, it's going to be like a decade before they're, competing for a championship. And that's if they hit on those picks.
In Kobe's last 3 years with the Lakers, they averaged about 22 wins per season. They didn't really put much around him, but Kobe's last 3 years are not even close to what LeBron is right now.
No.
We saw Kobe decline year after year after year because of the injuries. And we see LeBron at 38, still a top 7, top 8 player. And oh, by the way, if Anthony Davis comes back, you've got another top 10 player. Yeah, you go out there, you make a move. We've talked for 6, 8 months about Buddy Hield and Miles Turner from Indiana. Now, the Pacers have been a surprise team this year, but they're starting to fall back in the pack. Maybe they would look at those 2 first-round picks for Buddy Hield and Miles Turner, and those 2 players, I think, would make the Lakers certainly a playoff team. I don't know about a contender, but it would certainly improve their roster, and you go from there. And again, nothing better to perk out an entire team than making a move at the trade deadline or sooner that adds talent. So maybe that's back on the table. And if you're a Lakers fan, root for Indiana to, lose and lose more, so that eventually they'll move on from Buddy Hield and Miles Turner, and their destination could be in LA.
Yeah, I think there's other guys that they could look at too. DeMar DeRozan, and Nikola Vucevic from Chicago. I don't think you can get both of them, but one of them, either one of them would be helpful. Toronto, I think, is going to sell off. So maybe you look at like a Pascal Siakam is possible for you, or Fred VanVleet, who's a free agent, who would, he's a great shooter. He can certainly help you there. You could go for a lesser guy like Terry Rozier is certainly going to be available. There's plenty of guys that can be had. The Lakers just can't say, okay, well, we're going to give you, this piece of crap and another piece of crap, and we're going to get a good player, right? Like, nobody's going to do the Lakers any favors. They're going to have to give up part with those first round picks. And so somebody, whether it's LeBron or, LeBron's agent, which is also LeBron, saying, hey, do something. This is ridiculous. Somebody needs to put Rob Pelinka and Jeannie Buss's feet to the fire a little bit here if you're a Lakers fan, because unless they do that, Sap, even if they do get healthy, I still don't think that there's any chance that they reasonably compete for a championship, which if you have LeBron James on your team and you're not reasonably competing for a championship, it seems like a waste.
Right, especially when he's playing at that level, right? It's not like, okay, LeBron's averaging 22, 7, and 6, and he looks old. He still looks as good as ever out there, as efficient as ever outside of taking threes, which I wish he would take fewer of those. But again, I don't think he wants to go to the basket as much as he used to. He's older. You get beat up going to the basket, although he's shooting free throws much better. He's around 75, 76% this year, which is good. So more confidence in him going to the basket, getting fouled, and making the opposition pay by hitting 75% of his free throws. That's still not great, but it's better than 69, 68%, which it was a few years ago. These are the Los Angeles Lakers. They should be in contention. I mean, that is a market which the Lakers and Dodgers are in a class by themselves, and then everybody else kind of fills in the gaps. Football teams, the Chargers and the Rams, who aren't even the 2 most popular football teams in LA. The Kings are fairly popular, but LA is all about the Dodgers and Lakers. And look, the Dodgers year in and year out make moves to contend. It's only netted them 1 World Series in the last 34 years, and that came in a shortened season back during the pandemic. But yeah, go ahead, make a move, and then deal with it in 2027 and 2029 when LeBron and Anthony Davis are probably gone, and you have plenty of free agent money, and you can go sign whoever's available, and there'll be players available that want to play in LA.
Right. I get, like, again, Sap, if this was the Wizards or the Magic, you'd be more concerned about parting with the first round pick. Like, holy
Mhm.
crap, we're not going to be able to get anybody to sign here and stuff like that. But the Lakers, throughout their history, have had no issues attracting anybody, whether they're good, bad, mediocre. So it's almost like they've forgotten who they are. And I hate that Lakers supremacy mindset, but the fact is, just look out your front door. If you're Jeannie Buss or Rob Pelinka, you see palm trees and it's sunny. Although I know it's been raining there a lot recently, but for the most part, it's sunny. And you're seeing beautiful people, warm weather, and say, "Oh yeah, people will want to come here." It's not really. We don't have to pitch them very hard on it. So I at this point, with LeBron playing as well as he is, Anthony Davis coming back for them, I think it's crazy to be hoarding these first round picks and hoping that, in 4 years down the road that, LeBron James and Anthony Davis are gone and you suddenly hit on a pick and then that takes 4 or 5 years to develop and then that's your path. That doesn't make any sense.
Well, maybe the Lakers make the moves at the trade deadline or sooner. The Lakers make a run in the postseason and play the Celtics in the finals to determine who gets the 18th championship, since they're tied at 17 right now. I'm sure ABC would like that, right? Lakers Celtics finals.
That'd be a decent ratings for ABC. I just don't think those teams are in the same place right now, Sap. Sorry to say it.
They're not. No, they're not.
But
although, he still would scare the hell out of you if they're in the finals, because that means they would have beaten, I don't know, Golden State, Memphis, Denver, and
without a doubt.
That would be interesting. I'm not counting on that. I feel more confident saying the Celtics are going to be playing in the finals than the Lakers. But again, you had a couple of nice pieces there. They can make a run because the West is solid but not great. I picked Denver before the season started to win the championship, and I'll stick with that. They look pretty darn good.
They do.
But Memphis. Look, Memphis looks a lot like they did last year, where they look sensational, but then get to the second round of the playoffs. They were hit with injuries in that Golden State series. They may have beaten Golden State if they were healthy last year. New Orleans, they always have injury concerns. Dallas is Luka and a bunch of other guys. Golden State's obviously the team that you still fear because Curry's back now and right away he's putting up 40 points in a game. So they're still a contending team without question. But you're the Lakers. You have to be relevant, especially when you've got LeBron still playing at that incredibly high level.
For sure. And Sap, I'm glad you mentioned Steph Curry because that brings us right into what I want to talk about next, which is some interesting comments made by Warriors head coach Steve Kerr, where he calls Steph Curry the modern MJ. And this is something we've sort of talked about a little bit. So I'm going to read exactly what he said to you, Sap, and have you sort of react to what he said. So this was in a press conference, post-game show conference he had after the other night, where he said Steph Curry put up 40 points. He said, he's the modern MJ. I used to see this when I was playing with the Bulls. Half the crowd had red 23 jerseys on, and now half the crowd has blue and yellow 30 jerseys. Steph transcends the game. He elicits an emotion from people. I think it's because he's so awe-inspiring with his play that no matter where we go, there are people cheering for him and can't wait to see him perform because we've never seen anything like him. And I think people can relate to him because he's not this superhero in terms of size and strength. He's 6'3", 185 pounds. There's a lot of people out there that have size and can't do with his size, but can't do what he can do. He's incredibly inspiring, and as a result, we get a ton of support on the road. So comparing Steph Curry to Michael Jordan, Sap, how do you feel about that comparison from Steve Kerr?
Well, I think both guys, the comparison is that they both have done so much for their sport. I mean, without question, Michael Jordan's the most important figure in the history of the NBA. We can sit here and debate if it's LeBron or Michael Jordan and who's the greatest player. Bill Russell's the greatest winner, all of that stuff. Michael Jordan made the NBA global. I mean, before he showed up, it was a niche sport, which only a few years before he showed up, the finals were on tape delay. Yes, Magic and Bird were great, and Dr. J and a lot of other great players. He took it to a completely different level. I mean, the Olympic team in 1992 existed because of him. Yeah. And the sport grew worldwide because of Michael Jordan. Steph Curry's doing similar things, but not quite at that level, but because I don't know how much more the game can grow, and it continues to grow. But Jordan took it from a 6 to a 9. So maybe Curry's taking it to a 9.5, right? With his play. And I get what Steve Kerr is talking about because look, Jordan flew. I mean, Jordan literally could fly. I mean, we're not being hyperbolic here. Steph Curry, his game is different. I mean, you look at
Very.
him and he looks like an average guy. I mean, Jordan was still 6'6", 210, phenomenal athletic ability. He was, the ultimate warrior, winner, all of that stuff. Curry looks like a guy that, was a shooting guard in college and, maybe played a little bit in the NBA. And of course, he's a lot more than that. So, yeah. And also the fact that I think a lot of women like Steph Curry, young players, young girls like Steph Curry, they kind of look at him as someone that they can look up to because he plays a different style of play. Yeah, I mean, the comparisons are there. Jordan's just at a different level, in my opinion, especially with Nike selling sneakers. Like Curry doesn't have that type of
No,
reach the way Michael
not
Jordan.
the
I mean,
sneaker
Michael Jordan's at the same level as like Muhammad Ali, right? I mean, like
Yeah, and Babe
Wayne
Ruth.
Gretzky, Babe Ruth. Yeah, certain people, maybe a couple of golfers, Jack Nicklaus, whatever. Oh, obviously Tiger Woods,
Yeah.
more so than any other golfer. Curry's awesome, but does Curry have even as big an outreach as LeBron, who's also a worldwide athlete? It's different too because LeBron is that superhero.
Well, like Sap, I think you've said this, for years now about Curry, his appeal being that exact reason that Steve Kerr said is that, and as you just alluded to, is that what he does looks possible, like for,
Right.
the average player. He makes it look possible, even though it's obviously not. He's the greatest shooter of all time, in my opinion, by a wide margin. And he's not only the first person to sort of do this 3-point shooting from anywhere on the court, but he's also by far the best at it. So yeah, you can't realistically do it, but what he does, he makes it look possible. Like no one, that those whole I want to be like Mike commercials, like, yeah, everybody wanted to be like Michael Jordan, but I think everybody realized it was completely unattainable because, like you said, he was flying. And so it was awe inspiring. And what Steph Curry does is awe inspiring. But I think a lot of people think, if I go out and just start bombing threes and practice that every day, I can be a really, really good shooter like Steph Curry. Can't, but he, that's just natural given talent. You look at his lineage, his dad was an NBA player, his brother's an NBA player. So he's got that going for him too.
His brother's got a higher 3-point shooting percentage than Steph.
Yeah.
Seth has a higher career 3-point shooting percentage than Steph. So yeah, he's more than just a 3-point shooter, but you're right. Again, 6'3", 185, not the greatest athlete. Obviously he's got athletic abilities, great ball handling, can pass, great court vision, all that fun stuff. But he literally he's helped change the game, but the game was changing towards him as well, which is always the case. It's never just one guy who does all of this. The sport was heading in that direction with analytics, like threes are better than twos.
Right.
And along comes the guy who's just phenomenal at it.
Yeah, it was a perfect storm, certainly. And here's the thing too that I look at with Steve Kerr's comments, and obviously he's biased. He's his own player. He coaches him. He's coached him for years. They're very close. With Michael Jordan was the most popular player in the league. Probably still is the most popular basketball player in the world, Sap. So just let's say since from when he came on the scene, early mid 80s till he retired in 2001, 2002. So, a 20-year period where he was the most popular player in the NBA. Steph Curry, is Steph Curry ever been the most popular player in the NBA? If you go strictly by jersey sales, I know he's always at the top, but I still kind of think it's LeBron. But the weird thing to me, Sap, and this is a rambling thought, and just maybe you can rein me in right after I say this, is that I don't think besides me, who's unreasonable, there's not anybody who's like actively really dislikes Steph Curry. I don't really like him, but I think I'm in the vast minority. There's so many people who dislike LeBron James.
Oh,
and yet I still think LeBron might be more popular. You see kind of where I'm getting at?
Yeah,
I can't really make heads or tails.
I know exactly what you mean. He's more polarizing. Like everybody knows LeBron James. Like
Sure.
Most people know Steph Curry. I mean, if you're a basketball fan or, a fair weather sports fan, of him. LeBron James touches more than just basketball. I mean, I was at a gathering the other night and, people my age who tend to be more conservative, when you're a 60-year-old white dude, you tend to be conservative. I'm not, but
Right.
The ones I'm talking to despise him. They really do. I mean, they admire him as a player, but they just don't like the fact that he gets into politics and that, he gets into social issues. And my response to that is he pays a lot of money in taxes. And that usually shuts them up because people that pay a lot of money in taxes tend to get involved in the political system, the
Yes.
political specter, and many of them are conservatives, right?
Oh
So
yeah.
when a black man that's considered liberal gets into it, why can't he? So that's the way I always kind of push back and say this guy does a lot for charity. He contributed $100 million to education in the Akron area, built a hospital. I mean, look, the guy does a lot of stuff. If he wants to weigh in on political issues, so be it. He pays a lot in taxes. So that's the way I always push back. He's incredibly polarizing. Jordan wasn't polarizing. People loved Jordan. I also think
Right.
they feared him at some point. But Jordan was infinitely more interesting than Steph Curry. I find Steph Curry kind of boring, right? I mean, he didn't marry his high school sweetheart. Seems to be a good dad, a good husband. He's kind of milquetoast. Jordan, there was a lot of drama with Jordan, right? I mean, punching teammates and feuding with Isaiah Thomas, just
And
a
he
lot of
was,
stuff.
constantly everywhere on TV. He had the Gatorade commercials and he had the Nike commercial. And I know Steph Curry does a Subway commercial, which is, that's great.
Kind
But
of perfect for Steph Curry, right? A Subway commercial.
yeah, so that's the one part where I pushed back with Steve Kerr. I get the part he's saying where it's like, he looks like, Joe Everyman. And so you can, he's very relatable in that. But I think to be that, like, in that air where, the modern MJ, you have to, you can't be that Joe Everyman. I think that people have to look at say, wow, look at this person. Like, I can't never be them. And you have to be sort of in awe of him. People are in awe of Steph Curry's shooting. But like, it's just beyond that. I don't see the Jordan comparison. Yes, he's very popular. I still don't think he's the most popular player in the league. And the fact that that's even the debate sort of detracts from Steve Kerr's argument in my mind. Like Michael Jordan was so clearly the most popular player in the league. There was nobody even close. And we're talking about for years who the guy would be that would supplant Jordan. It didn't really happen until after Jordan retired that anybody sort of supplanted him in terms of being popular. And so I get again what Kerr's saying, and he's building up his own guy, but I don't agree with the sentiment fully.
Well, the other thing too is in 2 of Steph Curry's 4 championship seasons, he wasn't even the best player on his team. I mean, look, Kevin Durant was MVP in 2 finals. Steph Curry finally won a finals MVP just 7 months ago against the Celtics. I mean, heck, Andre Iguodala was the finals MVP in their first championship run. There was never a doubt who the best player in the Chicago Bulls was, right? I mean, there was never a doubt. There really wasn't even a doubt for 8, 9, 10 years who the best player in the league was. It was Michael Jordan. With Steph Curry, like I said, I don't think he's ever been considered the best player in the league. Wildly popular, impactful, all of that stuff. He's not the player that LeBron James is or was. Not even close. I mean, he can't pass like LeBron. He can't rebound like LeBron, and he can't defend like LeBron. And LeBron has a higher scoring average. So what is there to compare there? And now with these young guns, whether it's Luka or Tatum or Giannis and Embiid and the Joker, I mean, these guys are better players than Steph Curry. Curry's still great. No one's doubting that. But again, it's not MJ. MJ is once in a lifetime. It's just everything about him, the look, right? Like Steph Curry doesn't really set fashion trends, does he? I mean,
no, well, like I'm saying, Sap, like I
Michael
think
Jordan did,
that,
like the earring. He was like the first athlete that was cool to wear an earring. The
and
bald
shaved his
head,
head. You need
shaved
to
his
have
head, and
this
the
like
suits.
aura.
I mean, he was a good looking guy. He was just. There were people who, I got to meet him several times before he really became as big as he became. I'm talking about like his first few years in the league when I was covering the Celtics, and he had the 63 against the Celtics, and you could tell obviously the guy was ridiculous. But later on, it was like when he walked in a room, it felt like he was levitating. Like there aren't many people that you say that about, like maybe former presidents. Muhammad Ali's someone like that.
Yeah, some
musician or a great actor or whatever.
Yeah.
Actors maybe not necessarily because they're gonna hide in character. Like you might run into Daniel Day-Lewis at a bakery and not know it's him.
Right.
Because he's researching a role of being a baker. But yeah, the thing about Michael Jordan is it seemed like he levitated and you were just in awe of the guy. I don't get that with Steph Curry. I don't. And that doesn't make him anything less than a great player. It's just it's maybe not an apples to apples comparison. And look, Steph Curry can niche out his own thing, which is spectacular, which is great.
And yeah, I mean, if you're again, we're about to wrap up, but talking about influential is certainly another argument too. Who's the most influential player in the game? I think we agree it's Michael Jordan.
Mhm.
You could have a debate, I think, between LeBron and Steph Curry, which of the two of them has been more influential. I'd say
Mhm.
LeBron James has been more influential off the court in terms of how players view mobility and business and making money and using their voice for political change. And
Mhm.
Steph Curry in terms of how the game is being played now has been more influential, and that again, probably because it's physically impossible to do the things LeBron does. And Steph Curry, I think people believe, okay, if with enough practice, I can try to replicate, 80% of that. But
True.
that's a different argument. I just think in terms of the Jordan argument, I get and appreciate what Steve Kerr is trying to do, but it's not something I endorse.
Right. No, not quite yet. Well, not quite ever. I mean, again, Jordan is once in a lifetime. I mean, I know transcends sports is like a phrase we overuse, but it applies to Michael Jordan more so than any athlete of my lifetime, with the possible exception of Muhammad Ali. And again, you brought up Babe Ruth. Wayne Gretzky's probably close to that, but hockey's never grown worldwide quite
Yeah,
to
in
the way
Canada, yeah.
basketball has. In Canada, Wayne Gretzky he's a god. Bobby Orr, Gordie Howe, those guys were all godlike figures. But yeah, no, I mean, MJ's a different category. He's still the most popular player in the NBA, and he hasn't played since 2003. Just look at his sneaker sales. He blows everyone away.
Yeah.
And he's still, when he showed up at the All-Star game last weekend, who drew the most attention? Michael Jordan.
Oh yeah, any room he walks into, he'll draw the most attention. That's just who he is. But Sap, that's gonna do it for us here at the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap. Thanks to Full Press Coverage. Make sure you check out our social medias for all sorts of different opinions, stats, polls, and updates on the show. At John Sap 25, at Jet Stryer. You can find the podcast wherever podcasts are found. Just type in the Pick and Roll NBA podcast with Jet and Sap. We appreciate all you. We'll be back later with a new edition of the pod. Plenty to talk about as the NBA trade deadline is coming up in about a month. And we got the All-Star game and All-Star voting returns coming in pretty much weekly. So we'll have all sorts of updates on with that for you and lots more NBA drama as always. So thanks for listening, everybody, and we will talk to you later. See ya.